short break. JJK Chapter 254 is here. After Maki's unknown fate in the hands of Sukuna, I hope she survived. I mean, a lot of JJK fans are gonna be upset if Sukuna added her to his collection of dead people. The only one left standing is Kusakabe. Man, I hope that he can give a decent fight, because from what I've seen, Sukuna has one-shot sorcerers stronger than him. The unthinkable matchup begins as Kusakabe activates his new shadow-style simple domain, Evening Sword, to fight Sukuna, and Sukuna clearly looks down on Kusakabe, as he asks what can a simple domain do against him who can send a slashing attack, implying that a simple domain is more effective on close-range fights than someone who can use a long-range attack. Kusakabe explains that a simple domain is only able to negate the sure hit effect of a domain expansion, but cannot negate the effects of a curse technique. Even if that's the case with his simple domain, Kusakabe can boost his curse energy and weaken Sukuna's slashing attacks the moment it enters the radius of his simple domain, giving Kusakabe a defensive ability against Sukuna's ridiculous attacks. As Sukuna sends a slashing attack, Kusakabe is able to deflect it, which is already an impressive feat by Kusakabe. Sukuna is quite impressed, as Kusakabe explains that by incorporating all of his programming to his simple domain, he can automatically intercept anything that enters his domain, much like Killua in Hunter x Hunter. He adds that he can read Sukuna's slashing attacks by focusing on his movements and the sparks of his curse energy, but Sukuna pulls something that shocks Kusakabe, as he sends a slashing attack without even moving a muscle that nearly cut Kusakabe's head clean off, but he is able to deflect it in the very last second, as he expects Sukuna's next attack to be a world-cutting dismantle. In a flashback, Meme, Nanami and Gojo talk about Kusakabe, saying that in terms of raw physical strength Meme and Nanami are above Kusakabe, but because Kusakabe has mastered his sword and his simple domain, he has become like a Swiss Army knife, someone that can be of use everywhere. Man, that's some high praise coming from these top sorcerers. Gojo adds that while everyone needs to have a binding vow or something else in order to maintain their simple domain, including him who needs both of his feet planted to the ground, but Kusakabe is different as he can move freely while maintaining his simple domain. Not only that, but unlike a typical simple domain where it only has a small radius around it, Kusakabe's simple domain has a wide range, implying that Kusakabe is indeed a master of simple domain. I kinda want to know if what his domain expansion might look like. Would it be like his simple domain but on a much larger scale where he can negate the activation of his opponents? Domain expansion, man, that would be a broken ability. As Sukuna notices that Kusakabe's domain has reached him, preventing him from charging up his curse energy, while in the flashback Meme explains that the new Shadow Sword draw is a counter technique meant to draw on the opponents, but with Kusakabe he can bring in his opponents to him, by expanding the range of his simple domain. She adds, combined with his ability to counter anything that invades his domain, makes him an opponent not to be messed with. Man, who would have thought that a lazy person like Kusakabe could have a simple yet an effective way of fighting? No wonder he is considered as the strongest grade 1 sorcerer. Now that Sukuna is inside the range of his domain, and with his ability to hit anything that invades his domain, Kusakabe starts to hit Sukuna with his slashing attacks. It's like he has turned the tables around on Sukuna, from the one who slices and dices up his opponents to the one being cut to shreds. Man, Kusakabe is really giving a show here. I just wonder, now that Sukuna is inside his domain enabling Kusakabe to hit him with his attacks, can he just right away cut Sukuna's head? Or even slash his eyes to blind him? Or just cut off all of his limbs? Man, that would be a broken ability. In the flashback, Nanami says that no one can evade this attack by Kusakabe, except for the one who doesn't need to evade his attacks, who is Gojo. Kusakabe continues his attacks till his sword gets broken. Man, I guess Sukuna's body is really that hard to be able to tank all of Kusakabe's attacks, with only a few scratches on his body. As his sword gets broken, Kusakabe simply throws down his coat and starts a fist fight with Sukuna. He then relentlessly pummels him with his attacks, sending Sukuna through a freaking bridge, and because he can move freely with his simple domain, means that any attack that Sukuna might counter him with won't be as powerful as his previous attacks, and because Kusakabe can boost his curse energy within his simple domain, means that he is hitting Sukuna with everything that he has got. Even Kusakabe can't understand himself on why he is doing this, on why he is fighting like this, which is an opposite to his lazy, easy-to-give-up attitude. Man, I guess the ones who looks like they don't care are actually the ones who cares the most. As Kusakabe wonders himself, he thinks of his time with Yaga and blames him for acting like this. I guess they had a student and teacher relationship. He adds that Yaga won't be sad if he doesn't put his life on the line, but instead, he will be sad because he can no longer fight with him. In the flashback, Meimei, Nanami, and Gojo unanimously agreed that although Kusakabe often complains, no one can deny his intellect and integrity. Man, this kinda makes me fearful of what might happen to Kusakabe. As he fights, he says that this is not the time to think, because if Sukuna takes him out, then he will kill Miwa and the remaining players. He adds that because the kids fought with their lives on the line, he will also charge to his death. Man, I have a feeling that Kusakabe will not survive this fight. As he fights, he activates another technique called New Shadow Style Moonlight Veil. That lets him create an extension of his broken sword. He basically repaired his sword using his curse energy. As he strikes Sukuna with all his might, Sukuna simply laughs as he says that Kusakabe is obviously aiming for his damaged heart. We see that Sukuna casually caught Kusakabe's sword with only 2 fingers. Man, I guess this is another character in JJK is about to go down, as we see Kusakabe lying flat on the ground, with a massive X slash on his chest. Uyui immediately pops near Kusakabe to teleport him to safety just like Yuta. But Sukuna appears behind him, who is clearly starting to get annoyed by his constant popping around rescuing his opponents. As he is about to get sliced, a familiar figure appears and grabs him to safety, as Miguel, the one who went toe-to-toe with Gojo, is next to fight Sukuna. Maybe this is their plan to grab all of the known sorcerers that they know can put up a fight against Sukuna, just to buy time for the others to recover, like Yuta and potentially Gojo, to then just gang up on Sukuna as a final boss versus everyone fight. Man, that would be epic. That's up, guys. It feels like these fights are building up to something epic. For more JJK updates, hit like, share, follow or subscribe. Thank you, smiley face.